So CNN's favorite resident pool boy in chief, Chris Cuomo, the Cabana boy, he was having a debate with Ben Ferguson, and I wanted to run through these clips because I think that Chris Cuomo's statements here on this Mac Bags and the state wrestling title and the issue of gender and biology, it's very typical of how today's regressive left argues these type of issues. Let's go clip one.
The amount of hormone that this kid is given is the minimum standard they can give to replicate the output of a boy. So it's not like a super amount of testosterone. It's not like these kids are going to be superhuman. It is the opposite. They are given the minimum. Scientifically, that is the outcome. If you look and do the research as I have, you'll see that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Gavin said, we're saying the exact same thing. It's like, it's only the amount required to make her like a boy so she can beat the shit out of girls. Like we're sitting there, yes.
How does he miss that? How does he miss it? I don't understand.
So again, he's talking about science here. He says, if you've done the research, right? So Chris Cuomo wants to talk about science. Well, let's look at the science. Let's look at the average testosterone levels for females. So a 17-year-old girl is somewhere around the 50 to 75 nanograms per deciliter. This is what they use. I know people will try and fact check me. We can talk about this or free testosterone. The ratios are going to be quite similar. So 50 milligrams per deciliter. The average boy at 17, if you look at here from the Mayo Clinic, can be 300 to 1,200. And 300 would actually be very, very low, warranting supplementation. So the average, if you look there, you take the mean, will be somewhere around the 800 mark for a 17-year-old boy. That's when your testosterone levels are at their highest. So let's take that number, 50 nanograms per deciliter for a girl to 800 for a male. So the minimum required dose to bring that girl to the kind of hormonal profile that a male has would be low end 8 to 10, more like 12 to 15 times the amount. Jeez. And for context, by the way, this is superhuman. When he says it's not superhuman, for competing against a girl, this is superhuman. Because when you look at when we talk about steroids and how much we complain, Barry Bonds, Mark McGuire, athletes in sports, they don't enjoy anywhere. We're talking about 12 to 15, 10 to 15 times the amount, a boy over a girl. Barry Bonds or these juiced to the gills Mr. Olympias, they might be in the top upper 1,000s, 2,000s, really, really high. We can see this might get you to the 3,000 nanogram per deciliter if you're looking at those strong men power lifters. And that's what we call super physiological dosage, meaning a dose that is above anything that a human could create. So the ratio for a man on steroids would be maybe 3 times, or say the multiple would be 3 times the amount of the average man on a really strong day. On an average day, the lowest possible dosage required to take little Mac Pegs to the average boy level or lowest boy level would be a minimum of 8 times the hormone. Testosterone, responsible for not only bone density, cartilage, ligaments, muscle tissue, the way the rest of your hormones respond. Your hormones are a giant panel. Also brain tissue. We'll get into with the trans issue. Men have bigger brain.
Some may call these stats significant.
Some may call them medically significant. Some also may call them a statistical advantage.
The issue is acceptance. If this state allowed this kid to wrestle against boys, which is what he wants, we wouldn't be talking about this case right now.
It's now about acceptance.
Yeah.
See, it was about science. It was about science before. If you've done the research on science, now the issue is about acceptance. Well, okay, how about this? How about you, Chris Cuomo, accept the science? As we have this clip, I think we have it from Morning Grinders. I forgot to run that clip. Let's accept the science we did, as seen here by noted weakling Jared versus CrossFit super queen Courtney Scoffs. Roll clip.
Damn it!
Just imagine what you could do.
And people who share your idea are using misinformation and mythology here. The idea of if
it's
you
not
let
misinformation.
Of course it is, because the idea that they're going to have genitals waved in their face. My 12-year-old daughter, she's going to have genitals waved in her face.
Well, usually this would be a straw man, except in the sport of wrestling, you can quite literally have genitals waved in your face.
I'm tapping out right there. I'm done.
He took a straw man and made it a real one. He just can't stop losing. Okay, anyway, so he goes on to this. He says, your technique about genitals in the face. So we've gone from science to acceptance to something about genitals in the face. Now Chris Cuomo goes on to debate with this strategy.
What happens when the girl identifies as a boy? and wants to go to the boys' locker room or vice versa to play into the fear. And for you to say that there are none on the right who are making about what I'm saying is demonstrably false.
So we go from the science, if you've done the science, there's no way to debate with someone like this.
No.
And we believe in always trying to have an idea, a form of ideas, discussion of ideas. Absolutely, I don't believe you should ever absolve yourself of arguing ideas. No. But how can you argue, and it was like with Michael Ian Black, right here, how can you argue this on a platform of ideas? If you've done the science research, as I've done the science research, okay, well, this is what the science says. It's not about science, it's about acceptance. What? Penises in your face. What? You can't say that not a single right-wing person has ever sent me a picture of a penis in a face. Donald Trump! Next clip.
Go to my Twitter feed, brother. They are putting pictures of my face on a guy exposing himself to a 12-year-old girl.
This is media. Go to my Twitter feed. No, you go to my Twitter feed. No, you go to my Twitter feed. My Twitter feed has penises. No, mine has more. Mine has more. People are putting penises all over my face.
That's a normal day on Jared's Twitter feed.
Therefore, I'm not fake news. Look at my Twitter feed, brother. And we did look at his Twitter feed. This is the tweet in question that someone sent to him. But by the way, non-gay Jared and I get worse on our lunch break.
That's true. It's so true.
That's a very, very tame Twitter slant. So again, it goes from science. So I hate to be repetitive here. Science to acceptance to balls on face to are you denying that any right-wing person has ever said anything transphobic to now look at my Twitter feed. And actually we had Jared do his research. You went on his Twitter feed even more. I mean, there's not a whole lot there to see. If you look at it, it's mostly tame. Okay, well, I see what can happen there. I could see why he could be perturbed.
I don't know how they did that.
This is why you're getting so personal, Chris.
That's a legit hack.
All right, here's his next argument.
You should let these kids be where they're most comfortable. This is about accommodation.
I thought it was about science.
No.
They don't want the kid to have what he wants, so they're forcing him to wrestle with girls. You don't want the kid to use the bathroom they want because you don't like it based on your tradition. I'm saying let the kids go where they want.
No. You see, this is the difference between leftist parenting and conservative parenting, right? You know, the left, well, the kid wants this, the kid wants... Chris Cuomo's the kind of guy who would have kids like, Dad, I want cotton candy, and I want a cookie, and I want, me. No. And Chris Cuomo's like, okay, well, let me see how I can accommodate that. My father would be like, Dad, yeah, I want to use a ladies' room. No. You don't give kids everything that they want.
Abuse.
the abuse.
Transgender doesn't happen on a whim. It's a continuum of time and hormones and pain and anxiety. And I challenge you and everybody who's listening to go find me a case of indecent exposure by a transgender person in a bathroom. It doesn't happen.
It happens all the time. It happens. We've written about it a lot with credit.com. It happens all the time. One happened in Target. There was the incident in Seattle. Actually, that guy was just gaming the system. He's kind of my hero. And by the way, it doesn't happen on a whim. It happens over time. The last season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians ended, and 4 months later, Bruce Jenner was Caitlyn. So let's be real here. It's not like this needs to happen over the course of years.
No.
It can happen really quickly. Certainly as far as we're used to, if you had a family member who over the course of the summer, or your kid, your friends, you go to summer camp, you have some friends you only see in school, you don't necessarily see them over the summer, and you come back and it's like, oh, Charles, okay, you're a woman now. All right.
It took me longer to get my CDL.
Get your carry permit. It takes longer. It takes longer to get a revolver in New Jersey than it does to change your sex on your driver's license. I think we have one last clip, right?
And if you look at the data, the only thing that you accomplish by doing what you say is traditional is that you scar these kids as an other, and their rates of depression and suicide and non-acceptance go up.
And that last conclusion is so perfect of everything that's happened here. It was about science, and then it was about comfort, and then it was about Right here he goes, the rates of depression, the rates of suicide. Okay, well, let's talk about that. That's science. And unacceptance. That's not a metric. It's like, let's talk about the rate of average income, okay, of average degrees or average levels of education, yes, and what people's broken dreams are. You can't put them in the same thing. Or it'd be like saying, hey, this mug it fits 16 ounces. Great, that can fit an entire beer, which tends to be 12 fluid ounces. Yes. Also, how much do you personally enjoy the flavor in that mug on a scale from 1 to 10? The answer for Mug Club is always 10.
It's always 10.
12.
But the point is they're taking two things that are scientifically observable, that have metrics. You can look at depression, you can look at suicide. And you know what, by the way, before we get to unacceptance, let's look at that. 98% of confused boys and 88% of confused girls eventually accept their gender after puberty. That's something the left doesn't want to talk about. Let's talk about the suicide rates. 30% of transgender youth report at least one suicide attempt. 42% report self-injury. As they get older, 41% attempted suicide rate. It's at least that high even after the sex hormone replacement therapy, even after the sex change, if they go through with it, when most transgenders don't. So what we're talking about, if we want to talk about unacceptance, we want to talk about othering, we want to talk about helping kids, how about actually getting them the help that they need? Because statistically, if you look at the science, by the way, gender has no basis in biology whatsoever, as seen by Chris Cuomo trying to go from science to acceptance to balls on your face to my Twitter feed. He has no argument. He has no leg to stand on, so we go to this idea of acceptance as though that's ultimately the most important value, as though it's somehow virtuous to accept everything, regardless of the outcome, when we know that you are putting these kids, particularly men, when you are giving them estrogen, or if you're giving women unnatural levels of testosterone, you could be putting them into a very shallow, cancerous grave brought on by early suicide. These people need help. Any way you look at it, the transgender community is not mentally healthy. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a mental illness, but if you care about the group, let's actually try to get to a solution instead of, as you guys hate with Big Pharma, throwing drugs, throwing hormones at it, and talking about balls on the face. But instead, we can't talk about science, right? Because it's about accommodation. Apparently, Chris Cuomo skipped that science class. Hey, if you like this clip, you're like most of the internet. You have a short attention span, but it was taken from the full show. You can see it in a box playing next to me. That's once a week on Thursdays, full 1.5 hour show, or you can join the Mug Club for the daily show. We have to take some of that off YouTube because they're monitoring us.